welcome to Sarah and Tech. I'm Sarah. Today I'm going to be interviewing Matt Boucher, which is one of my good college friends from like forever ago.
Yeah, we graduated almost a decade ago.
Oh God, we're old.
We are. It's scary. I think next fall will be our 10-year.
Are we having a reunion?
I have no idea.
Do colleges have reunions?
Some of them do. It's less of the formal reunion. They'll just put out like a memo for homecoming saying, hey, if you were from this class, it's your 10-year, we'll have a tent up or something. And I might go up for the day for just see the house, go to probably the PK, and that's about it. Because even most of the professors we had, a lot of them are retired now.
Or they moved on to bigger schools because that was like, you know, the takeoff of their career. I remember Calhoun, I bet he totally isn't there anymore. And it was just like the first year or two after he got out, and he was just like, I need a professorship and I need one now.
He was such a nice guy.
I know, he taught genetics, totally love genetics. It's totally a dinner table conversation at my house, like all the time. Genetics.
Oh my God, I was so bad at that class. I understood everything, but I did not put any of the work in. Even the fly lab.
I remember,
and 95% of my data.
I remember I was like actively genetically selecting my flies, and I remember that you weren't. And I was kind of miffed.
He kind of started, I think after that year, he started actually monitoring people's experiments a little bit more. For good reason.
I was doing, I remember I was doing turtle research, and I had like access to all this additional equipment. So I started utilizing it for my flies too. And then I included it in my report. I think that report was the only reason I passed, because I was doing awful in the exams.
Do you remember he had us do a paper on just some genetic disorder? There was one of the assignments. I don't know if we took it at the same. Did we take it?
Yeah, we did. We had the same lab, and he had like 2 class sections.
Okay, we had to do some paper on a genetic disorder, and I chose leprechaunism because I thought it sounded amusing, and it's a very depressing disease. There's nothing amusing about it.
There's no golds and rainbows?
Sadly, no. They named it poorly. But I printed the paper out in normal black ink, and then another one in green ink, went up to Dr. Calhoun and said, do you have a dark sense of humor? He said yes. I gave him the green one. I think I got a B+ on that. So I don't know if that helped me or not, but I will take it. It was a very sad disease. Most people with it don't make it past about 7.
Oh, whoa.
Which, yeah, there's not much sad.
I was expecting it like just people being short. That's
yeah, it's if I remember right, and I could be very wrong, it's been over a decade, but it was basically a lot of your growth is stunted, but it's less of not just your height and everything like that. I mean, it's just all your development stunted. And again, I could be very wrong about that. It's been a long time. And college, there was a bit of boozing involved.
What? We drank?
A little bit, and post-college and last weekend.
Have you stopped drinking beer is the real question here. No.
No, but this next week and a half there'll be less because Caitlin's parents don't drink.
Is there a religious reason, or they're just the type of people that don't drink?
Her dad was never much of a big drinker, and then her mom's family, there was some alcoholism in the family, so she never really got into it. So I think that he doesn't drink to more just out of respect for, her situation, and makes sense, people with alcoholics in the family tend to either become alcoholics themselves or just completely avoid it. It's kind of hard to mitigate it.
Well, isn't it like a certain level of genetics associated with like being an alcoholic or not?
Yeah, as far as I understand, that's what it is. That's a lot. I mean, even knowing that you would have be susceptible to that addiction makes it scarier to even think about it, right? I even remember taking the Vicodin they gave me for my wisdom teeth and being like, I know people who've, like, I hear stories all the time of people getting addicted to this, so I just limited my use of it. Mm-hmm. Just dealt with some of the pain, because it's like, I don't want to be addicted to Vicodin.
I mean, I got all 4 of my wisdom teeth out, and I didn't take any Vicodin. I had a full pill bottle, and then I'm pretty sure I threw it out. I'm just like, yeah.
I took about 2 to 3 days worth, and then I went just to Motrin. So, and it was not pleasant, but...
I actually didn't feel any pain, so I don't know if I'm just weird and don't feel pain.
Enjoy that. Pain sucks.
I'm told.
My legs are in pain most of the time, so.
How far do you normally run every day? I know you're a distance runner.
Every day I do at least 1 mile running. Average is about 20 to 30 miles a week running. Biking, right now I'm going over 100 miles a week on the bike and then maybe 2 in the water.
Do you have ambitions outside of just doing a bunch of triathlons for fun?
No, I just want to do the 1 full Ironman, get the tattoo for it, and then kind of go back to sprints and just see if I can get faster a little bit. I don't think I'll ever get back to college form, but it'll be nice just to see if I can get myself a little bit closer to the podium in these races. Unfortunately, 30 to 34 is a very competitive age group. It's the age where people either don't have kids or they don't have kids, or if their kids are young enough where they can still train a lot and they have a little bit of disposable income, some time, and can really put some time and effort into it. Versus, the 40, 45s, people usually have kids or their bodies are starting to break down a little bit more, and the field spreads out a little bit.
I recently had a coworker that was, what do you call it? Adidas pays them money to train.
Sponsored.
Yeah, so they were a sponsored runner, and so I got to hear a lot about it. My mom taught figure skating, so I'm used to like, pinnacle of your career is like 18 to 25, and after that you basically don't have any more if you're gonna pinnacle. And it was so unusual to me to find out like running's pinnacle is in your mid to late 30s. I was like,
yeah, distance athletes especially, it's that mid 30s range is usually where they peak. And I don't know what it is. It must just be something about that you're not going all out. You gotta build everything and kind of get yourself there. One of my buddies, he just moved out to Colorado with hopes of training to go for the Olympic marathon, and he's 32. I think his goal is the trials. I don't know. I mean, he'd have to give it everything to really have a real shot. But he's gone under 2.5 hours. I'd have to look back and see what he's done. So he's not terribly far off, but the faster you get, that 30 seconds is a huge window compared to my 4.5 hours. That 30 seconds is not as big of a window. But as far as I know, he rolled his ankle pretty bad moving out there, so he might get delayed in his training.
oh gosh.
Yeah. It is a little, I don't know if that's ironic, but it's a little comedic that he moves out there to do all his training and then hurts himself in the moving process. Obviously sad, but since he's a guy that I've known since high school, I will laugh at him a little bit for it.
Well, I'm sure his rolled ankle will heal and he will return to training.
Yeah. Yeah, he's not going to let that stop him.
When did you discover your love for athleticism and running?
Honestly, it was probably late high school. I played baseball all my life growing up. Was not much of a runner, not really an athlete. I do a lot of hiking and that. And then sophomore year, I didn't make the baseball team, so my dad basically said, you're either getting a job or you're going out for another sports team. So I chose track. I tried sprints for 1 day. And then I went to distance because I thought it was going to be easier.
You're sadistic, aren't you?
Something like that. And then I at that time I couldn't run a mile. Could not run 2 laps around the track without really needing to stop. Was running in tennis shoes, doing everything wrong. By the end of the year, I think I broke 6 minutes for the mile, and I was ecstatic. Which I would actually be ecstatic to do that again now. And then I went out for cross country the next year, kept going. Senior year of high school, I got a job at Running Fit, a local shoe company here. That's one I will plug, they're awesome.
I think I actually bought all of my running shoes when I was doing distance running from Running Fit. They look at your gait and everything and say which shoe you should buy.
Yep, and so that's what I did. I helped people find their running shoes, and you got to talk to a lot of people too, and hear their stories of why they were running, either to get in shape. People wanted to become police officers, so they had to be able to do 2 miles in 20 minutes or something like that. There were requirements. Or you got the high school athletes, the college athletes, someone who's just running their first 5K, someone who's on their 50th marathon and is running and they know exactly what shoe they want. They tell you, hey, I need this ASICS shoe, and they're out the door. You get a lot of the stories, and technically I could say I was a sponsored athlete because there were days where I could go in, clock in, and do a run. It was a group run with people, to help bring people into the store, but I did get paid to actually work out.
I can never say that I've been paid to work out. Unless you count chasing kids on ice skates. Does that?
It kind of counts. But, so there was a lot of that. I got to do a little bit of coaching actually with that. they used to do classes, like your first 5K, kind of the couch to 5K, but with a group and someone who'd done a bunch of marathons teach, helping you through it. And then the next year they would do another class running 201 was this one. And the goal was to teach people kind of how to try to go faster. Hey, you've done your first 5K. You were 40 minutes. That's great. Let's see if we can get you down to 39, 38. We'll teach you ways that we can try to work on speeding you up. So I was an assistant coach for that class, and that was a lot of fun because again, these weren't people who were top level athletes or anything like that. They were just people who wanted to get better. So then when the graduation for this one was a 5K, and we ran the 5K with them, and I ran it with this young woman, crossed the finish line, ran back, found her mother, and ran in with her mother. Just to make sure, because that was also part of the goal. We had 3 coaches, so each coach would run with one of the athletes. You finish, you run back, and you find another athlete and run in with them. And it was a lot of fun, and it's because not everyone's going to be an Olympic level athlete, but there's no reason that you shouldn't not run because you're like, well, I'm never going to run a 15-minute 5K. Well, who cares? Go out, have fun. It's good for you a little bit, and if you only run one day a week, you only run one day a week, but it's better for you than nothing. So it was just a lot of fun to do that. And then post college, I did fall out of it a little bit. A couple of years, I had some injuries from college, and just decided it was too much work. And then a couple of years ago, we got back into it through the triathlon, through actually another Alma grad from the 90s, Tim Nestor. But he lived in Lansing, and we would talk, and he got me back doing a triathlon, and they had a running group in Lansing that they would run a 5K on Monday nights and then go to the bar. And I was 23, 24, and I was like, this is perfect. What, Monday night going to the bar? I'm always in.
Does Caitlin run with you?
She does. She doesn't, sorry. She doesn't run as much. She doesn't enjoy it the same way I do, but she's running to keep in shape. This year she started doing every day at least a mile. So between either doing a mile with me, doing a long run on her own, or doing her high intensity interval classes, which do involve about a mile's worth of running, she's made it the entire year so far.
Wow.
Over 200 days.
That's really impressive. That's
Yeah.
200 miles. Yeah.
Yeah.
Major props.
And then we're both signed up for the Detroit Half Marathon. We were hoping to do the international one, but that's now canceled. COVID won't let you cross the bridge and come back. But it is what it is.
But at least we get to hang out with people we know and not wear masks.
That is always nice. The pandemic was rough for a lot of people, and I did okay for it, mostly because I can be fairly introverted, so being able to lock myself inside and avoid people. And then the nice thing actually just with work, being in the lab, we were really the only people allowed in the building. So, your customer service, your salespeople, your finance people and all that, they were working from home. So it was your lab staff in the building and a few upper management people, which is just nice because it's quiet. And they got rid of our no headphones in the lab rule for that part of the time, which was just nice because then I could work in the lab and, again, ignore all the people who were still there.
And it was being polite because you're not supposed to interact with them because of COVID.
Yep. But we were then, for most of last year, we were only in 2 to 3 days a week. And starting this year, they basically had the lab in 5 days a week. Which...
Has that been rough, going back to full-time?
Not really. The only part that's getting rough is now they want the building at 50% capacity for it. So everyone is in 2 days a week. Which it's not a bad thing. I got my shots, I'm fine. I was never too worried about COVID, but I was more worried that if I got it and spread it to someone else, that was my thing. But just the amount of noise that's come back to the building is a little unfortunate.
I enjoyed going into the office when no one else was there because no one was coming in and everyone had the option to stay home. Then all of a sudden they're like, okay, time to come back to the office. And I'm like, I can't get anything done. Everyone's talking. Why are Nerf guns going off over my head?
I did. So there was a time where things kind of got slow for me because I'd run out of raw materials and I'd have to order them from somewhere else. So there wasn't a lot I could do lab-wise. So during the COVID months being at home, I had ordered a remote control helicopter with the goal of, I was working in the basement and Caitlin was working upstairs. So my goal was to try to learn to fly it up the stairs and just annoy her from a distance. I was not successful at getting it to fly well enough. The camera didn't work great, the controls weren't tight, and the dog wanted to attack it.
Have you tried like pushing it out the window and having it go up the window outside and then doing it?
I didn't try it there. I don't know if it would have worked that well in that apartment, but in the house it probably might work better now. But now I'm back in full time, so I can't. And it doesn't fly that well outside. You know, I probably would have had to go up to like $100 for that helicopter, not 40. You buy the cheap toys, you get the cheap toy. You buy a more expensive toy, okay, maybe it'll be a little nicer.
But there's no guarantee you'll actually use it if you buy the expensive one, so always start out with the cheap one.
Yeah, we actually took it up north last year. I can't remember which weekend we were up at my parents' cabin, and I brought it out, and my cousin's kid started crying, thinking it was going to fall into the lake, which I couldn't even get it out over the water. It got close to the water, and the wind just came up and took it.
Oh, wow. I've seen like a lot of the drones are really intense now, and you can do a lot of cool things where you organize all. Have you seen those light shows? They had one actually for the Olympics where the drones were flying around to be in a globe and then in different
That's really awesome.
artistic shapes. And they do it at Walt Disney World too.
Oh, they do?
Mm-hmm.
I have a buddy that he's got a drone, and a couple years ago, so actually when Ian Kurth got engaged, him and his wife now were driving around on their boat. So our buddy Kirk got his drone, and he's got a pretty nice one. He flew it out over the water, and the goal was for the drone to capture the footage of the proposal. So what Ian did is he had his wife start driving the boat, and she saw the drone and decided, I don't want to be anywhere near the drone. So just starts driving, trying to get far away from the drone.
And the drone's chasing them.
Yeah, well, Ian's like, okay, I need you to stop at some point so I can do this. And eventually it worked, but it was a pretty fun moment. And then actually there was the story, I don't know if you heard about it, the Michigan Eagle, the Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, the state government division, they had a drone get attacked by a bald eagle up north.
I don't think I heard that story.
So an eagle took down an eagle drone. They did end up recovering it.
I'm sure the eagle was just protecting its territory.
Yeah, just saw something flying and went, nope, you don't belong here.
So drones are pretty cool.
Yeah. We have a drone actually for one of our manufacturing plants. They have a drone because they've put some of their storage racks too close together to look up into them. So they've got a drone to fly up and look for raw materials on their shelves. It may have gotten stuck.
The drone?
Yeah, so they had to buy another drone to try to get the drone.
How do they go up and get the raw materials though? Because don't they use like a ladder or something?
Typically, so most plants, at least the ones I've been to, their racks will be far enough apart. You drive a forklift or a high-low, which are different. I don't know how, but they are different.
I mean, my grandpa used to drive a high-low for like Budweiser, I think, or something, but I never asked him what the difference was.
But yeah, so you drive in there, you pull a pallet off. But this facility was in a little bit of, they had some issues with storage. Some of the racks got too close together to drive into it, so they wanted to find another way to see if they had something. Which you'd think, because that's a facility, they cycle through their materials very quick, so there wouldn't be a lot of chances for them to lose something. I'm not very involved with that facility, but I get a lot of those stories secondhand.
So, you have a love of robotic, flying, small implements.
They are fun.
How did you get from like, golly gee, technology is cool to I love drones and chemistry is awesome and I love being in the lab? That's the real, like, when did the love of technology start?
So, I mean, going into college, I wanted to originally go into forensic science. That was kind of what I wanted to do. And probably like most people who decide they want to go into forensic science, they fell in love with the TV show CSI.
Or in my case, Bones.
Yes.
But same thing.
Yeah, same show, different people. Slightly different methodology, but then my junior year, the summer between junior and senior year, I was fortunate enough that one of our fraternity alumni worked for the State Department, or not the State Department, the State Crime Lab for Michigan. And I managed to get we'll call it loosely an internship with them. It was kind of more of I got to observe them once a week for the summer.
That's still pretty cool.
It was very cool. I got to see, the drug lab, I spent quite a lot of time at the drug lab, seeing bags of marijuana taller than the ceiling here, a bag of cocaine worth about $22,000.
So it was like this big.
It was a big freezer bag, but they were all packaged like that. Then, I got to see a little bit of their materials analysis lab. There were a couple other places I got to see. I got to go see an autopsy one day. I would not recommend going to an autopsy. It does not smell nice.
Did you know we had a cadaver lab at Alma?
I did. I never went into it.
I
never wanted to.
No.
That was one of those moments I was like, maybe this isn't for me. And then I got to go to the firearms lab too for a little bit, which was pretty fun because I got to shoot a machine gun into a pool of water. So not as much fun as actually shooting a machine gun elsewhere, but still got to shoot a machine gun, so technically. And then, you got to see them take the bullet and try to line it up. But part of the reason I thought I wanted to go into forensics was I didn't want to do the same thing every day. I didn't want some kind of monotony to what I wanted to do. And throughout the internship, I realized fairly quickly that basically you get put into a department and you're, the guy who's testing the cocaine, he's testing cocaine every day to prove it's cocaine, writing a report, and then he has to, then he'll have to go testify.
Now the real question is how does he test cocaine?
He does not test it that way, but I did learn, why they test it that way? So they put the cocaine and then they put it in your mouth. It'll numb your mouth.
Oh.
If you do that. So really pure cocaine will numb your mouth, which is actually now why one of the top things they'll use to cut cocaine, at least this is what I was told at the time, was Novocaine, because Novocaine will also numb. So it'll trick you to think, oh, this is really good cocaine, when in fact it's cut. And there were some other interesting things. He was of the opinion, one of the guys I worked with, that marijuana would never be legal federally. We'll see where that is in the next few years.
What states other than Idaho have it illegal still? Do you know? Because Idaho's the only one I can think of that it's illegal in.
And there's 20 some of them. I think it's almost half. It's
legal in Montana and Wyoming. Let's just give you some.
Yeah, but they're never gonna enforce anything like that in Wyoming. It's too spread out.
But it's legal. You can go purchase some weed in Wyoming, and it's
you can do that in Michigan too.
I know, but Idaho's completely surrounded by states where it's legal, and Idaho's yep, it's gonna still be illegal here. I'm you keep saying that.
It's gonna eventually become federally legal, but it's more of a when, not if kind of thing, and people can fight it all they want, and they will.
My biggest problem with it is just that there's all these people who are in jail and it ruined their lives, and after it becomes federally legal, can we wipe their record? Can they be
100%
released?
100% on board with that, with giving them
that's
some
my
kind
biggest
of payment, just because this sucked, and I'm not a politician, I'm not good with that stuff, I'm never gonna have that full solution on my own, but yeah, they need to be wiped. Their records at minimum need to be wiped clean, and they need to be free for it. And my biggest worry too is that I don't know if there's a test out there to really know if you're driving while high.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
The DUI,
how much does
it's not perfect, but it's at least relatively accurate.
What are they doing in Michigan?
I don't know on that. I just know you have to be 21 to buy it. Most of the people I know who partake use gummies as their form, and most of them don't drive after. They go get their Taco Bell first, or they'll order food. Everything you can get delivery now, so it's if you have that and you really need food, it's fairly easy. No, but it's nice that it is at least getting some kind of legalization. But so throughout that summer, I decided I really didn't care too much for that. It just felt like it was going to be too repetitive. So I left college not really knowing what I wanted to do. But after studying math and chemistry, I went more towards the chemistry side looking for work because, again, I didn't know what was really out there, and I felt that chemistry skill was a little bit more marketable. Outside of teaching people math, I didn't know what else you could really do with it. And I'm a little convinced that my boss actually chose to hire me because I had a math degree as well. A lot of people in the company come to me with just simple calculations, and I will tell everyone who's listening to this, proportions, people do not understand proportions, know them. They are not hard, but you will impress everyone with it. A lot of the things that we do, I do 2-component epoxy polyurethane systems, and so they'll have a mix ratio, right? Whether it's 100 to 100, which is nice and easy, or 100 to 50, or even we'll get 100 to 16. And people will say, well, what if I only want to mix up 100 pounds? And they won't understand that they can take that 100 to 16, and there's a simple calculation to tell you how much of each side.
I feel like I learned that in 8th grade.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm kind of saying it's not a hard thing to know, but people, I mean, you grow up your whole life, and how many people do you remember growing up who are like, I'm not good at math. I hate math.
We literally talked about this on the last episode. It's the only subject where people can just say, I'm not good at math, and then it's like acceptable. But no one ever says, I'm not good at English, or I'm not good at, well, I make that joke, I'm like, I barely speak English, and it's my first language.
That's what drove me to math, was that I was never good at writing. I was never good at, I didn't understand all the rules of grammar, I still don't know what an Oxford comma is, and I refuse to learn at this point. But stuff like that, I was just bad at, the rules of grammar felt a lot more subjective to me, and math.
It's like I before E, except after C, except in these cases.
Exactly.
And then you're like, welcome to the English language. Is it confusing?
So I'm not learning rules in English. I'm trying to memorize a language, versus in math, you learn a set of, in geometry, right? There's 5 main rules of geometry, and you can build everything else off of it. Which for me was like, great, I don't need to know a lot. I just need to be able to work through stuff. You learn a few facts, and you just learn to apply it somewhere else. And that's what drove me to math, and I think that's why I was good at math.
You learn laws.
Yeah.
Because they're universally.
Yeah. And then you take one class in college where they decide to take one of those rules of geometry, cross it off the list, and see what happens, and all of a sudden rectangles don't exist. Best class ever.
What class is that?
That was college geometry. It was Dr. Putz taught that one. It was non-Euclidean geometries. So
I don't feel like I took that.
It was a 400 level. I took a junior year with, it was Dr. Putz. I can't even remember who else was in that class. But it was just one of those where...
I was only in one class with you, and that was linear algebra.
Oh God, that was awful.
I had to watch the MIT lecture videos in order to get through that class, because the instructor just missed stuff and then expected you to know it for the exam.
Yeah. It helped that I was retaking it, and his exams, basically he changed the numbers in it, not what the questions were.
The concepts.
Helped me piece my way through it the second time. And I'm not good with computers, and that linear algebra is a very computer-oriented class. The matrices, they have a lot of at least applications, I believe, to the computer world.
That was the first time I programmed in R.
But yeah, the college geometry, that was a fun one for me, because it was kind of one of those what ifs, right? Where people will do that for history classes, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if the American Revolution never happened? What would the world look like? What if, what if the United States actually won in Vietnam? What if Canada was actually the superpower of the world? Like, these things, like, what would happen? And then math, again, a lot of the sciences, you don't get that, because what if gravity didn't exist doesn't make sense as a question for a lot of things. You can think about it, but you're not going to spend too much time on it. Okay, we'll float to the surface and we're all dead, it's over. But with this one, we managed to, we took one rule out of the 5 postulates of geometry and said, we're going to assume it's not true. And then everything else branched from there. And there was just a lot of things. Triangles had more than 180 degrees. Was one of the repercussions of this.
It sounds like an interdimensional triangle.
Yeah, kind of. There's forms of geometry that you can, you draw on a sphere. So you make the sphere essentially your plane of existence. And if you draw a triangle from the top of the sphere, basically like the North Pole, down to the equator where you hit it at a 90-degree angle, and back, you now have a triangle that has 3 90-degree angles. You have a 270-degree triangle.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something we see, because we do geometry in a plane.
It's like, what do you call it, like polar coordinates or something like that too, right?
I believe so. It's been a while since I've looked at that. But
this isn't what I do every day.
But it's getting more into is space as a whole, is it planar or is it curved? Where on the small area where we live, rectangles might technically exist because we can't measure how far off they are.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get into the scale of the solar system, the universe as a whole, those little variants that from that 90 degrees can finally be measured, and maybe it's no longer there. And it was, to me, it was one of the more interesting classes I took. It was more theoretical than I'm used to. You took a little bit more physics than I did, didn't you?
I mean, I just took 1 full year of physics, I think.
Oh, okay.
I took biology, and then I took like all the stats classes, and then I was like, I really love this statistics stuff, and now I do it every day.
I wish I would have taken more statistics. I took AP stats in high school and never went back to it because I was in math education, so I didn't have to take the stats class for a math major. And I keep thinking back to it going, man, I wish I really remembered like what p-values and all these things meant, where I can kind of understand it. Like I know what a standard deviation is still, but that's used everywhere, but not every of these other stat things that are very useful. They're not used in your day-to-day life, so it's harder to remember.
And I'm kind of like an anomaly because what I do is data science, and most data scientists are computer scientists. And so I bring stats in, and I'm just different. Not always better different. Some people get angry about it, but I'm different.
Oh, my favorite fantasy football analysts love stats, and they literally, every single one of them, there's actually a competition every year, and I can't remember what it's called, but they get these groups of people to try to analyze football statistics and try to come up with a new metric. So there's like the yards expected per carry, or like so. Your player, like based on how the rest of the team performs, you'd expect them to get 2 yards per carry, but because of this metric, you notice that they're getting 4 yards per carry, so they have 2 yards more per carry than expected.
And so if you put everyone out on the field, and you know that each person that's on the field normally gets about 5 yards per carry or something like that, then you would expect the ball to go that far, and then you have an expected value for the individuals on the field.
Yeah, so based on what the
cool.
team is that they're on, you can kind of analyze like, okay, is it this player doing this, or is it the team that's doing this? Because if they're getting a lot of more yards than you'd expect, they're doing something special. If they're getting less, then, or they're getting right at that level, it's there's a lot of factors to it. I don't usually pay too much attention to that one. I don't do great at fantasy football, but I also overthink it, where fantasy football is one of those games of you got to be the one going against the grain a little bit, and then if you think you know what you're doing, you start getting cute, and then you just do everything wrong because you think you know what you're doing. It's kind of like gambling. You play poker or blackjack, you can play the numbers and you can kind of come out ahead if you do it right, but if you get cocky and you start thinking, well, I can beat the numbers, that's when you lose. I've experienced it.
I just always have the attitude, because it's always in favor of the house, otherwise the gambling casinos wouldn't stay open. So I always just have the attitude of this is for entertainment. Do not expect to win anything as a result of what you're doing, because
that's the right way to go about it.
It's like, I'll spend $30 at a movie, I'll spend $30 at a gambling table. Should entertain me.
Yeah, and if you happen to walk away with 40, you're happy. If you walk away with a 0 out of that 30, you're happy. You got your entertainment.
But I definitely bet on stocks, and I always win.
With stocks, at least, right, you buy a stock, and if it loses some value, you still have that stock. If you bet $5 on a blackjack hand and you lose it, you don't have anything.
The stock can go down and you can be upside down on it, but usually if you leave it long enough in a stock, it'll come back up.
Yeah.
As long as it's, a stable company.
I can't remember who was quoted, but I saw someone quote that the stock market's a way from transferring money from the inpatient to the patient. So basically, it's if you're willing to wait on stocks, you can make more money. So basically, if you're not patient and you sell because something dropped a little bit, that's where you lose your money versus the person who sits and holds for a little longer. This is probably someone who's also putting millions into the stock market versus my $30 a month.
Yeah, I mean, I'm nowhere near millions. I just,
It would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but, maybe when we're like 60 or 70, we'll be millionaires.
And $1 million will be worth about a gallon of milk.
Probably, at the way inflation's going. Maybe we could have our whole house paid off.
Dreams.
I mean, as a millennial, owning a house is like, it's a feat.
Yeah, it is. And most of us buy houses because we get pets.
The pet needs a backyard.
And if there happens to be a child there, it is what it is.
I have both a pet and a child, so just definitely needed that backyard to go with them.
It helps. So yeah, but I got hired into a smaller chemical company back in 2012, and working for a smaller chemical company was kind of nice, especially for learning what the industry's like. You have to wear multiple hats. So I was doing R&D. I was also assisting with quality control from time to time. If I had a product that we were ready to sample to a customer, I would either make the sample or I would go out to production and actually watch them make it. So a lot of it was more of you're taking notes because you're going to write the procedure. And again, a smaller company, it's not that there's someone out there that can say, hey, here, this is done, you write this procedure. We didn't have a processing engineer. It was the chemist. There was 3 of us in the lab. And you'd go out there and you'd watch them take notes. And one of the things that I learned very quickly is there's these quality standards that everyone has to meet to do certain business, right? And this one was, it's essentially you have to do what you say you're going to do. So if I write a procedure saying you need to mix this batch for 30 minutes, then they need to mix it for 30 minutes. So what we kind of realized, and most people in the industry probably know, is that instead of me writing, you do this for 30 minutes, I go out there and watch them mix it and say, how long do you think you need to mix this to get this there? And if they say 15, I'll write it for 15.
Okay.
So you just want to make sure you're writing everything to what they're actually going to do on the production floor.
Okay.
Like everyone, we all try to cut corners where we can. So if I realize that I don't have to mix this thing for 30 minutes and I can get away with 15, that saves me 15 minutes where I can do something else or at least get this moving.
So why would you put something in, why would the production floor and you be making the same thing?
It would be more of that, I would go out there and observe them make this stuff for the first time at a production level.
Okay.
And that's where I would write down and take notes on how they actually want to make it. I would write the way that I think it should be made, but especially when I first started, I'd been there for 3-6 months, I'd only gone out on the production floor for a few times. So when I say, I want you to add these 5 ingredients in this order, and this guy who's been doing this for 20 years comes up and goes, I think it'll move better if I flip these 2 around in the order. And you can ask them why, and sometimes it's just, it gets more volume into the mixer before I add a powder or something like that. It makes it easier to disperse it. And sometimes it's more of, well, I think I can add these all on the big scale before I put it under the mixer. Because there's a lot of different ways there's a lot of different ways to make the batches, and you just want to find the most efficient. And typically the person doing it for 20 years is going to have a good idea versus 6 months.
We call those subject matter experts usually. They're just like, I'm just here to build the model. You tell me how you do your thing. And
yeah, so it was nice working out there, really nice because again, there's a different language that a chemist is going to speak versus a production guy versus even the quality control guy or the sales guy, and just everyone. We all speak a different language, even just because that's just how you're trained to talk. And you get to know them, and you trust the people you're working with to a certain level. And if you don't trust them, you know kind of who you have to kind of just get on a little bit more about certain things. So we would do a lot of different kind of batches. So we do ground floor development. So someone gives us an idea, and we start from nothing. We would do formulation and modification. So someone would come up and say, this customer loves this product. They need it to be, they need it to cure slower. They need it to cure faster.
So when you say loves this product, you mean cement or the base of a shoe, or those some of the type of items that you work with? Are you allowed to say? You can also say.
I think I am.
Okay.
We do 2-component epoxy, which is going to be a little bit more rigid. Our stuff is tooling based, so mold making. One of our products is a paste that they'll lay down this paste, and they'll take a big CNC machine, they'll machine it down, and then they'll use this mold to make wind blades. And the reason to use the paste is because you can make a seamless mold, and wind blades are huge, right? So you want to make this just one giant part. Versus some of our other stuff, we'll resell these polyurethane boards that you can CNC out and you can make a mold, but the mold would only be 6x4 at most. And if you wanted it bigger than that, you'd have to glue some of these together and you build, and then you have seams in them. So people just don't, if you don't want seams, you go with a different route.
Mm-hmm.
We do composite resins, so carbon fiber or fiberglass laminating resins. We don't really do prepregs, which are, they're carbon fibers that you can buy that are already wet out with resin, generally kept cold, and what you'll do, you can take them out in like a sheet that's already done, you stick it into your mold, and either you heat it or you expose it just to the elements, and it'll cure on its own over time. Epoxy adhesives, most of ours aren't structural.
Mm-hmm.
They're so they're just simple, usual adhesives. Some of them are a little tougher than others, but it just depends what the customer needs. The house that I was working at, we were kind of we're a custom shop, so we'd have one that was a polyurethane adhesive that would come out of a cartridge, and someone would say, well, I want this, but I want it more of a walnut wood color. And we would color match it for them if they would buy enough.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just, I mean, we just did everything. Your polyurethane casting, we're getting into concrete concrete forming. So we don't make the concrete, but we make polyurethane mats or tools to just pour the concrete into to get it into whatever shape you want.
Mm-hmm.
And those have to be a little bit flexible for whatever potential application, whether you're laying concrete down, stamping it into a shape, or you're taking this mold, you're pouring the concrete into it and then getting the concrete out. Sika, the company I work for, actually does do concrete, a lot of concrete. My division does not.
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're kind of in everything. We do, we make a laminating resin for race car bodies. That was actually kind of a cool customer to hear about. I got to go out there one year and actually see it.
Was it like Formula One or?
This is, I believe they're getting into the NASCAR bodies. That was a system we designed because they had to be flame retardant. Mm-hmm. So they had a system they were using, mm-hmm. and then they were, well, we needed to be fire retardant to meet some NASCAR spec. And that was it was a difficult project because they didn't want to lose any of their performance properties, and things that you add to reduce or to help prevent fire, they get in the way of everything else. So they do hurt some of your properties. So you have to tweak some things in order to get there. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's everything, right? You know, you start with this as your base level, and you say, I want something new. You might have to sacrifice something else. There's a balance, right, to all things. Or you pay more. And people don't want to do that.
Should be cheaper and better and more of what I want.
And completely faster. Green.
Yeah, not bad for the environment.
That one's hard. We're trying to get a little bit more into it, but it's either to get green raw materials, it's either expensive or you're going to sacrifice a lot of properties. And some of the products we make, there's one specifically, it's a mold making resin. So this is one. It's not anything really special as far as a material, but what it's designed for is to go in your mold between some fiberglass layers to provide some thickness and rigidity to it, and also be really lightweight. So it's not doing anything extremely special, but it needs to be able to kind of hold its own. And we try to replace one of the materials with a renewable bamboo. Bamboo is carbon negative, actually, not even carbon neutral. And these shavings, they mix right into the resin fairly easily. And we did the testing, we realized we were losing between 15 and 20% of our strengths. We also did lose we lost a little bit of weight too, mm-hmm. which is nice. Lighter is always better, because if you gotta move things around, you know, reducing your fuel consumption and your energy consumption is always a nice feat. So we talked to their sales staff about it, and one of the things they said was like, well, they want it to be where it is. And say it was 10,000 PSI was the compression strength, so how much you can push on it. Well, do they need 10,000? No, but they have 10,000 now. It's like, yeah, but if they only need 6,000, I'm giving you 8 here and it's green. But that's just, I mean, you're talking to people that might not fully know what they need from a product.
It's like, why are all the cars and the car lot able to go 120, when the fastest speed limit on any public road is 80.
Yeah, but then if you were to go look at a car and they said, oh yeah, this car tops out at 80 miles an hour, you might not buy it and go, well, my current car I can hit 100. Yeah, but do you ever go 100? No, but I can. And I think a lot of that comes from people, you don't want to max out anything, right? You don't want your phone battery to ever hit 0. So you want to know that, you know, I might charge my phone every night without any worry. My phone will be on a charger at night. But if I'm shopping for a phone and I see one that says 3-day battery, that's a big plus on that. Even though I'm never going to go 3 days of it off the charger. I'm religious about that. I see my charger hit about 60%, or my phone hit about 60%, and I start panicking, which I know is completely ridiculous. But
mine gets red, so that's when I'm like, all right, time to charge some more.
I'm also that person when my gas tank gets just under a quarter. I'm looking for a gas station. I don't like it when the light comes on.
I'm back home this week, and my parents live in the middle of nowhere, and there are no gas stations. And so I'm having to remind myself that a quarter of a tank is time to fill up around here, whereas back home it's like the nearest gas station's a mile away, and you know, all of that. So.
I have one literally around the corner from me, and it's like, still, I don't ever want to run out. I don't ever want to strain myself. And that probably comes a little bit from, I went out to Anaheim for work for a convention once, for a conference, and I went to a ball game that night, and I literally had 3% battery by the time the Uber got me.
Oh God.
I was sitting there panicking, like, I don't have cash to just find a cab. I don't know where my hotel is, like by name, and I don't have a phone charger, and I'm in the middle of a city I don't know.
So they make these like little phone batteries that you can like.
I have some.
Oh, okay.
You live and let learn, but that was just one of those moments where I was going to have to walk into the local whatever restaurant and just ask around and see if someone has a charger and if I can charge, and like, I will buy beer here. Just I need power to find my way home.
Usually waitresses do have chargers on them, but
especially if they do long shifts. It's not like they're not like people aren't ever on their phones.
Yeah. And it also earns them some extra tips. Well, so you have love of technology. Your job is pretty darn awesome right now.
It has its moments for sure. Every job has its stress, right? And developing, back when we were a smaller company, there was a little less pressure on each development. The nice thing is when you go to a bigger company, you get to get a little bit more specialized, right? I'm doing less quality control work than I was when we were smaller, but now our system for doing projects is a little bit more, there's just more to it. There's more paperwork involved. There's more regulations to follow because the bigger company is gonna crack down more on certain things.
There's like a set process. So yes. The smaller the companies are, because I've been at startups where there's like 15 people. There's no process. When you're at the like 200 or 300 person company, there's like so much process. You have to do this and this.
Yeah, and so I'm still learning our current process, and it's difficult because for our location, I'm the only chemist for my group that does this tooling and composites kind of stuff, and everyone else in my facility does automotive. Michigan is big into automotive.
Isn't Detroit known for, I don't know, as Motor City?
A little bit.
Yeah.
The Detroit Pistons, they're actually named after the car pistons, not horses.
And the Red Wings, their symbol is literally a tire.
Yeah. So we're big into automotive, and part of the problem for me learning some of this stuff is the automotive, their projects tend to go on for 2, 3, 4 years because it takes 2 years to get a product approved. So if you're developing for 1.5 years, and then you got to go through the 2-year approval, but you're never not working on it. So for me, my projects are a little smaller, so I need to be able to move faster through these steps, but a lot of people haven't gone through the steps in the same way. Or, it's been 6 months since they've gone from one step to another because we have this big system for it. So it's a learning experience. And the nice thing is, though, with the bigger company, we get a lot more toys to play with. So back in our other facility, we had an FTIR, which is used to scan your molecules and kind of get it. It can help you tell you what's in your in your material that you're looking at.
Mm-hmm. I actually wrote a paper on catalysis. It's like the 4th author. It got published in a journal. So I know a little bit, tiny itty bitty amount.
I was your TA for one of the chemistry terms, so you did very well, if I remember.
Yeah, I got told I wasn't allowed to try for extra credit because I was doing too well.
Again, one of those situations I think I was being a bit of a jerk. But I was just having fun.
It was you as a professor. It doesn't really terribly matter.
That wouldn't surprise me because that was Dr. Dobke, and he definitely had a goofy side to him as well. But we have so many more instruments. So we'll have thermal analysis instrumentation. There's a lot of it that I haven't even touched yet because I just haven't had a chance to even get to it. We bought a new machine a couple years ago that it's called a ball rebound tester, and it's a very simple machine. You cast a chunk of your material about 2 inches, 4 inches, and you put it into this thing, and you literally drop a ball on it. And then there's a laser that measures how high it bounces up. And depending on what you want out of your product, a 40% return could be good, or a 0%. Mm-hmm. There's materials out there that you want them to take all the energy and not allow anything out for more of like a ballistic application. Or one of these actually stamping mats that I'm working on, we want it to have a good energy return or a good memory to it. If you're working actually on, we don't do polyurethane foams, but a lot of your shoes and stuff like that will be a foam. And for a running shoe, you want it to have an energy return. When you're running, you want your foot to strike and you want it to kind of feel it spring you up a little bit. If it took all the energy from you.
You would not want to keep running because you would just go boop, boop, boop.
It'd be entertaining a little bit, put some of those pro track athletes in cement shoes and just see kind of how they do on us.
Those would be good for training though. I'm sure they'd actually want those for training.
Maybe a little bit, but there's a whole field out there, not field, but there's people that think that wearing weighted ankle bracelets and stuff like that can be good for running. Mm-hmm. And everything I've read about it says don't do it. Mm-hmm. You're gonna hurt yourself more than likely than help yourself. But it's also our human tendency that we see something and go, I think that can work, and go from 0 to 100 instead of going, let's try it for a run around the block first, and then go 2 blocks, and then work our way up to a mile. Eventually, we go, I can do a mile with 5 pounds on my ankle, and then it hurts more the next day, and then you're done with it. Do you remember the trend of the toe shoes?
Oh yeah, they were around college even.
I had a couple pairs of them. I love them for just normal day wear.
I mean, but isn't that good for the muscles of your feet, or did they find that that's bad now?
There were a lot of papers that said it was good, and then I remember a few years ago papers coming out basically saying it was all bogus, which I didn't really read many of them, but most papers like that go way over my head. So there's a debate about it, and I think if you do it the right way and you ease yourself into it, there can be benefits, but we saw a lot of people when I sold the running shoes that they'd buy it and they'd go out and run 3 or 4 miles the next day in them, and they'd come back and go, I have blisters all over my feet. My ankles are killing, my knees hurt. Well, what'd you do? I bought those shoes and I went running in them. Well, I told you to ease into them. 4 miles is not easy. Even if you're
I normally go 20 every day.
Even if you're running 70 miles a week, 4 miles is still, you're putting stress on your body. Mm-hmm. And I know that because I ran 70 miles a week quite a bit in college. And it's a lot on you. It's exhausting, and you need your chance for your body to recover. Mm-hmm. And that's, again, something that we're not good about, is letting ourselves recover. I know I don't stretch, and that's a running joke in the running community of...
Yeah, they always brag for whatever reason. I'm around a bunch of runners, and they're like, I can't even touch my toes, and I'm doing weird yoga poses and tree and eagle. And...
I've done a few yoga classes. They're fun. They're difficult, but it's just different than what I'm used to doing. I'm used to moving nonstop, and then you tell me, all right, get into a pose, look like you're running, and stop. What? This isn't what I'm trained to do.
But it strengthens the muscles by holding that.
Yeah.
So, it is good for you. It's just different, and it's less wear and tear on your body.
Most of my yoga classes involve beer.
Yeah, I think, was it you or someone else that I know, posted, goats, beer, and yoga?
I never did the goat one.
I was oh, that's interesting.
I like the beer and yoga. I don't know if I trust the goats.
I don't know how, yeah, anyway.
Animals in general, like I know my dog now, but when we first got him, I didn't trust him with anything. You can't. they don't they don't respond to everything the same way, you know. I tell my dog, no, you can't have my food. He doesn't understand that. He's just looking at me going, when are you gonna give me the food? He's a goof.
Well, I mean, like, have you ever done yoga near a dog? Usually they're like up in your face and they're like, is something wrong? Can I help you? Are you okay?
I haven't as much, but I've seen Caitlin do yoga with the dog, or she'll every once in a while try to do some core work, and the dog just walk up and just sit right over her, and it's like, you're not helping. I know you think you are, but you're not. Or he'll, you're trying to get his dinner, right? And you walk over to where the food is to go scoop it into the bowl, and he'll stand right in front of the door, and it's like, I can't open the door to get your food while you're right there. I know why you're following me, because you don't want me to forget about this, but I can't get your food with you right there. But, I mean, certain dogs too, like all pets, right? They learn a behavior, they can learn a way to manipulate you in some way, they're going to try it. And then they learn the rules, and then that's put the toe over the line. Children, I assume, are the same.
Oh yes, they straight up try to manipulate you. I'm not even gonna get into the more recent stories. We're in the potty training phase.
Does not sound fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of moms that share really personal details about their kids, and then like I feel like those kids are gonna get really upset in like a decade when, the story is embarrassing. It's that level of fun stories. So I'm not gonna put it out on the internet for everyone to hear about my wonderful little girl.
Don't blame.
I mean, I've seen people take pictures of their children next to the potty, and then post it on Facebook, and I'm like, that's too invasive. That's
that's a little much. It's let your kid have some privacy, because especially those are moments they don't really have control over. Like they're starting to develop consciousness at that point. You don't remember much before then.
So, but yes, she does try to manipulate me. She knows what she wants, and it's a carrot. Like. I guess a safe thing to say is like, she wants a candy. And I'm like, well, you have to eat your dinner first if you're going to get the candy. If you eat dinner, you don't get candy. But it's, tantrum time then, so.
It's the best part about being an adult. If I want candy, I get candy.
Yes, now that you make your own money, Matt, you can.
I can.
Have your candy first.
And I have a liquor store right around the corner that has candy always. So if I really want candy, it's a 2-minute walk.
One thing about Michigan is the liquor stores are inside like the grocery store, and the grocery store is 24 hours a day. In Idaho, the liquor store is actually a liquor store and it closes at 8 p.m. And I don't even drink that much, but I should be able to buy wine at 9 p.m. I'm an adult.
Yeah, sometimes you don't know you want it until 9 p.m.
But anyway, so if there is one piece of advice you could give to your younger self, say at like 15, now that you're the ripe age of 30,
I am.
What would it be that you would want younger you to know?
I would tell myself to just explore a little bit more what's out there. I enjoy my work, a lot of it, but I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I kind of jumped on the first opportunity without really trying to figure out what it was I was going to be doing. I never really figured out what I wanted to do, and I still don't really know. Like again, I like what I do, but it's not what drives me.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those things out there is that, everyone says, what's the phrase? If you do what you love, you never work a day in your life, it's not really true, but
if you do what you love, you ruin the thing that you love.
True, but if it's something that you're really passionate about and you find a way to do it, I probably wouldn't have gone into chemistry. I probably would have looked into some way to either do something more in like a physical or like a human kind of physical therapy sort of role, or something like this, the biomechanics of how humans function, and look into more athletic kind of stuff, and maybe even a little bit of business actually.
Have you seen the field of bioinformatics?
No.
It's like statistics and biology like had a child.
That sounds awesome.
Yes, it is.
Although biology, I don't know, I struggled with biology in college, and it was just, I don't know why it was. It never grabbed me. chemistry in college did grab me, but math really didn't grab me. Like math was that one I took those classes out of passion more than any kind of marketable skill. But I do wish I would have taken some more business classes actually, because that's just something in the world. No matter what you do, there's a use for it.
Yeah.
And in college, I never thought there was. You know, there was classes that I thought it's like, well, why would I ever take this? This is not going to matter to me ever. And I'm in a chemical industry field, and I'm required to do even reports with stuff about our profit margins and that.
Mm-hmm.
And I can do the math behind it, but I don't understand everything that the sales staff or the upper management is looking for in it. I see, well, we're making something for $1 a pound, we're selling it for $5. That's great for me, but they might look at it and say, it's not really worth it for us to keep going down this path because we're not selling enough. So there's just factors in there that I don't see in the same way as someone who would have taken a lot more business courses. I took one econ class and nearly failed it because it was freshman year. And I decided halfway through that I didn't have to go to class anymore. That's another thing I'd probably tell myself is don't skip class.
I would tell you actively during college not to skip class.
You were smarter than me.
I misbehaved nights before class, but I would still force myself to go to class the next day and be miserable in spite of my bad behavior as punishment to remind me to behave. Can't say it was terribly effective, but I had my butt in the seat.
But and then I would have it would have helped if I would have tried to find extracurriculars in college or done some actual research studies with professors, especially because Alma was a school where you really could do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I never reached out to any professors to really do that, to try to push myself in a different direction and see what the real the research level of academia is like.
You never had a research project?
No.
I mean, the only reason I had one is because I asked someone, but I thought the professors would just pick you.
And that's kind of what I thought it was, but I feel like if I would have started engaging with my professors a little bit more, which I might have been able to do that. And part of, that's the nice thing about going to a school like Alma is that, you're in a class of 30 kids, your professors,
And you see the same professors if you're in that subject matter over and over. You're not nameless.
I'm friends with about 5 or 6 of them on Facebook, which is very weird. I ran into Professor Sika at the mall once after college. So you get to know these professors in a different way, and that's not to take away from the bigger schools. I can see the way I went through college.
Mm-hmm.
If assuming that I am the same person I am now, if I went to U of M or MSU or Grand Valley or any of these bigger schools, I don't think I would have done well there because I really would have stopped going to class.
And see, I think I should have probably gone to a big school, and I'm kind of sad people pushed me to go to a small school because I think a big school would have provided me different challenges. But I mean, looking back on that, giving that advice to yourself, you never know for sure if it would have been good or bad.
Well, you remember some of the days at Alma's campus. I remember going in as a freshman thinking, wow, the classes are 100 yards away. I'm never going to skip class. It's never going to be too cold, too rainy. I'm never going to feel too tired to walk 100 yards and go to class. And by halfway through sophomore year, it's snowing outside, and you go, do I have to? And it's one of those things. I mean, you become your environment, right? Mm-hmm. To some extent. So people in bigger schools, they get used to, I got to know the bus schedule. I got to know how to walk places. I got to time my classes in a way that we didn't have to, because that 10 minutes to go from one building to the next was 50 feet, and you had an overpass over you.
And half the time we were spent chatting in the hallway, catching up with people.
Yeah, and then your labs, they were, again, 20 feet away from your classes.
And you could run to the cafeteria and run back in between class and lab.
But I do wish I would have worked a little bit more to talk to some of my professors and I honestly wish I would have taken statistics classes too, because I didn't. And
we only had 2 stats classes in the entire college. One in the math department and one in the bio department. And I took all of them, and then I went out, got a master's in it. Like, that some program even let me in on that is crazy, but
you did it, and that's an amazing thing. I do sometimes wish I would have gone for a master's, but part of my problem was I really didn't know what I wanted to look into, and I still theoretically could, but I still don't know what I would want to go into. So
well, the really cool thing is usually at a company, if you tell them you want to go get a master's degree and you tell them that you just want to like take night classes, 1 class a semester, they'll cover the cost usually. They're more than happy to do that for you. It's really weird.
I know ours does, and that's something I might actually look into post my Ironman a month and a half, because right now that's taking up an hour to 2 hours a night, and that's rough. It's just not something you can't add to that. Like, this is a goal I decided. My hope was last year to do it before turning 30, because as we all know, you turn 30 and your body falls apart.
How's that going for you? Has it fallen apart yet?
It's trying to.
Oh, okay.
COVID happened though, and during that summer I injured my quad, and that's still bugging me. I don't even know exactly what I hurt, but it's right down there.
Did you talk to a doctor?
I talked to my coach.
You have a coach?
I do.
Is it like a personal trainer, or?
Kinda. I mean, all our work is via Zoom calls and that. He's down in Ohio. He's been fantastic though. He's worked with me with the injuries. He kind of understands what's going on. He can't name what my specific injury is. And at this point, I'm a month and a half away, and it's like, you know what? I'm gonna get through this, and then I'll go see a doctor and let them poke me with stuff and tell me that you're an idiot for doing this and all that. But there's too much money and time to do it. I'm finishing this race.
Well, I'm sure you're gonna do very well.
I hope so. If
You'll
I cross
at least
the finish
finish
line,
it.
that's all I care about. Yeah, but that's just one of those things. I mean, I got to run in college. That was part of the reason I went to Alma, was just the chance to keep training, keep running. It was, it was a passion, but it was one at the time I was not going to push myself to do. Older and wiser slightly now, I pushing myself to run on my own, which is nice. But not everyone.
That's a lot of willpower. Most people don't have it.
Yeah, now I need to, after this race, put into something else and hopefully get a little bit better at my job too, because there's a lot of the science that we do, like the chemistry that I'm doing, it's finished science, right? It's epoxy and amine, they cure, but it's more of, I jokingly call it, I'm a chemical smoothie maker. Someone comes to me and says, well, I need this system that does these 10 things. So I don't need to know all the time what each molecule looks like. I don't need to be able to do, from organic, the arrow mechanisms of following the electrons around, because I know the epoxy and amine reaction. But I need to be able to know that, okay, this epoxy has 2 functional groups, this amine has 4 functional amines. It's going to get me a more rigid product, or it's going to give me a higher TG product because this resin's a little bit more apt for it. Oh, they need to drive the cost down. I can add this filler product to it that's 30 cents a pound to it, mix it in. It'll drive our cost down, and they can handle that it's going to increase the weight, but it might lose some properties. So it's a balancing act, but I don't have to know exactly why strawberry is good for you in a smoothie, but I know it tastes good and it's got some vitamins for you. I'll throw it in the smoothie and you'll like the smoothie, kind of thing.
It makes me feel like AI would do that really well.
We do have a software that they use for some products. It's a DOE software, so design of experiment. Some of the chemists really like it, some of them don't. I believe it's generally the older chemists really seem to hate it. It works better for the automotive side of things because their products, they're typically 1 component systems, so it's an epoxy resin where your curative is in there, and you'll apply it. It can either be an adhesive, some kind of foam, just whatever the product is. You apply it, you bond it, you throw it in an oven, and the oven is your catalyst. So your curative's already in there, and the heat just breaks it open and lets it start going. Our polyester systems work a similar way, where it's this polyester resin, and you have an amine component or a metal component in there, and that's going to be what's going to react to the polyester. The polyester is a radical reaction, so it reacts with itself. But what you need to do is you add a peroxide to it, and the peroxide the amine will break the peroxide open, and that's what forces the radical reaction of the polyester forward. Pro tip also, do not mix the metal cobalt with the peroxide together on their own. They will make a semi-explosion in your face. Only had to learn that one time.
Also, don't mix bleach and ammonia.
Don't do that either. Also, don't get amines in your eye. They're bad for you. Done a few stupid things in my career. Luckily, I still have both eyes. And they are my best feature, so.
No, is that what Caitlin says?
I have no idea.
What,
I've never asked.
Are you guys engaged yet?
We are.
Okay.
We got engaged in December.
Okay, very cool. I knew you guys got a house together.
I proposed the day after we signed for the house.
Aww, was she surprised?
She knew it was coming, but she didn't know when. And that was one where, because we had gone out and looked at rings, and then I basically the next day ordered the ring that she picked out from my aunt, she works at the store, who made it easier. But so we did that, and then I got the ring about a week before proposing, and then I called around, found a couple of our friends to come over, and I was trying to be sneaky about it. Like, I didn't want to tell even the friends what was happening. I was like, come on, see the house this day. We're going to move our first stuff in. And eventually I had to tell the friends what was going on, and they came out so they could get photos when it happened. But I went to the house first, brought the dog, got him to see the house, and then she came over with just a load of stuff, and then got her in the house. I even snuck a nice blazer over with me.
Aww.
I had a couple bottles of sparkling wine in the house, flowers that I forgot to bring out because I'm a really good romantic.
Well, you might have been nervous just a
tad. A little bit. So yeah, it was it worked well. Nothing ever goes as completely as planned, and especially when you're trying to surprise someone, and they don't know that you're trying to surprise them with something. It's like, I need you to come. We need to go now. I'm working up. Like she didn't know I was planning something. She was like, no, we can wait. Not a big deal.
You're like, surprise! Come on, let's do this.
And then, we watch TV shows where someone's trying to plan a surprise, and I watch that and go, man, I feel that now in a different way, because I'm normally not the one trying to plan a surprise. Not a big one. And if it is, it's like, okay, I can store this in my car and bring it out at the time. Not a proposal. It's a little bit bigger of a surprise.
That's kind of a once in a lifetime surprise.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, do you have any wrap up thoughts that you want to share, or?
No, I think I went through most of everything. I mean, again, the nice thing with when I worked with the smaller company was that my role was very broad. So you get to kind of dip your toes into a lot of different places, or as my boss says, you wear a lot of hats. And then you go to the bigger company, and yeah, things get a little tighter about what you can do and how you do it, but your role also gets more specified.
Usually at smaller companies, there's more room to go vertical in your role, so you could go up very quickly, whereas at bigger companies, going up each level takes a lot more time, effort, and energy as well.
Yeah, we're actually in the process currently where my role is going to be changing more from R&D to a technical service role. So kind of that middle person between your customers, your salespeople, and your lab. Because again, all these people speak a different language, so someone has to kind of be there as the translator, but also be able to help people physically with the stuff. This is a role I did have a little bit in the past, where I got to go out to Wisconsin and help build a mold for a bathtub, which was a lot of fun. It was.
Did you later buy the bathtub to put in your house?
No, no, that bathtub would be too expensive. But yeah, I mean, it's and again, the epoxy stuff, it's such a simple technology, but a lot of it going from, just, you don't realize how much of this stuff is used in places. Your fiberglass, we use a spray that we do, a polyester, you make a gel coat, and then we layer this fiberglass over this gel coat to about 6 or 7 layers. And you have a time limit because the stuff wants to cure. And the longer you go, the hotter it gets because it starts to react and giving off energy. And then eventually it becomes solid, and then the next day they literally take a forklift basically to try to pull this thing off. And I think they managed to use the part a little bit, but I don't think they ended up actually buying the product from us full time. This was a trial, and the customer there, they preferred the polyesters, which smelled really bad, but since the guy had been using polyester his whole career, epoxy smelled bad to him because he was just used to the one.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if you like weird smells, epoxy and polyurethane are a great place because they're really weird smells sometimes.
But aren't those like bad chemicals to inhale a lot of?
Yeah, you don't want to huff them.
Thanks. I was gonna go home and huff them, but now that you said something.
Well, we actually have a co-op. We made a joke one day that he was working on some glue products. He goes, "Yeah, I can finally go tell everyone that I get paid to sniff glue." And it's like, I guess you're not wrong, because one of his tests actually involves like they would cure the glue in a jar, and there'd be some solvent in the jar to try to just extract everything. And then what you do is you bake it for a certain period of time after that, and then you'd open the jar, and everyone would walk up, and you'd have to rate the smell from like a 0 to a 5. Now you're not sticking your face in it. You're doing the way chemists smell things, right? You're holding it kind of here and just wafting it. But most of the smells, they weren't that bad. Like, they couldn't be over a 3 rating. But it's a very subjective test, so you want everyone possible to come help.
Mm-hmm.
We did a similar test for one of our products because we added a defoaming additive to it.
Mm-hmm.
For a urethane, just kind of keep it. We wanted a solid piece, not a urethane foam, which is the biggest market for urethane is foams. But we didn't want it. But the customer, when they trialed this product, they opened it and went, "Guys, we can't stand it. We're opening it and it smells like varnish." And we had a lot of this defoaming additive in it, and we knew that's where it came from because I've smelled that defoaming additive a lot. And it was a high percentage. So what we did is I actually grabbed a bunch of people that weren't in the chemical department. So I grabbed our sales staff, I grabbed customer service, I grabbed our marketing guy. I was like, "Hey, I need you guys to do something for me." So I lined up a bunch of just different concentrations of this and told me, and I actually first gave them the pure material and said, "Here, just waft it, get a good smell of it. Tell me when you can no longer smell it." And that's how we came up with our new concentration. Because once you use these chemicals too for a while, you're going to get numb to some of the smells.
So they're actually trying to make like artificial noses and stuff to quantify these things objectively rather than subjectively.
That is awesome.
I've heard a little bit about that research, and it's really, really interesting.
That's a lot of the problems that we'll just run into is the objectivity versus subjective tests, where a lot of them, your viscosity, how thick or thin is a liquid. That's an objective test. I throw out a spindle in there, this machine's calibrated, it measures it, I get a number. But one of our customers, they care about the memory of a system that we're working with. So you take this polyurethane material, and if you fold it up, you roll it up you roll it up like a poster.
Mm-hmm.
And when their customer uses it, they want to be able to pull it off, and it folds right back out to its original form.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the last product we sent them did not have a very good memory to it, where you could even take just the corner, you bend it up, and it would fall kind of like this, where they want it to, bam, hit the table. So that's been a problem for us too, because it's a very subjective test where, well, I think it hit the corner. I'm not seeing it have a problem, but I'm not the guy with 30 years experience.
Well, I mean, hit the corner versus like, you come back 30 minutes later and it's flat, it's not curling up.
Yeah. Yeah, and to me, it wouldn't be an issue, but I'm not the one out there using this product
Mm-hmm.
and seeing that, oh wait, this is slowing me down by 30 minutes. And that's what they want. And you don't want to say the customer's always right, but if they're the ones paying you, you gotta listen to them a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So, 2 questions left.
All right.
I know we both like weird outfits. We're totally like trying to out-weird each other's outfits.
I like the dress you got.
Well, thank you. It was between this and something like straight out of the 60s, so now I
had 2 other options in the car.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your piece?
I just like it. It's Ron Swanson, one of my favorite TV characters, which is funny because I don't feel I'm really anything like him. I just enjoy his character. Nick Offerman's a fun guy.
you have a lot more emotions, and like you're very expressive and raw.
Yeah, but and he's got a lot of things on here I like. I enjoy whiskey. I drink too much coffee now. Don't really love it, but I drink it. Bacon. I don't know if that rose is supposed to be made of bacon too. It's hard to tell.
Is that a rose? Is that what that's supposed to be?
I thought it was, but campfire, axes. I'm not much with a grill, but I like football, burgers. I like these shirts. They're fun. I like to wear clothes that are just fun.
You've consistently done it since college. I can't remember. Did you have it before college or?
No, but I also before college really couldn't afford it. Having a little bit of disposable income helps because, even you can find some good older stuff that gets on the crazier side too, but you have to look for it. A couple years ago, Caitlin got me a Hawaiian style shirt. It's a Detroit Lions one, and this shirt it must have been in the '60s or '70s when it was made. Just the design is all sorts of ridiculous, and when I wore it home one time to my parents, I was like, yeah, Caitlin got the second hand, and my dad's like, she better have. No one should pay money for that new. I was like, this is my favorite shirt. I've gone to a couple Lions games now, and I wear it. And I actually have one NFL Lions player that follows me on Twitter, and he was joking. He was asking people kind of where their Lions fandom came from. And I tweeted a photo of me wearing that outfit with my Lions sport coat. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of was born into it. I went more into it after college once I started watching it a bit more, but he actually responded to me, and now he follows me, which is awesome. That he wants to meet up at some point, get a photo of he interacts with all his fans. Tyrell Crosby, you're awesome. But yeah, it's just I don't know. I like wearing the fun clothes, and now that I can afford some of them, and I'm not going broke buying them. Because a lot of them they get expensive too. Because now there's a real market for it. A lot of people are wearing crazy clothes now. Bright colors, weird outfits, styles that don't make sense. Crocs.
No comment about Crocs.
I have a coworker that wears Crocs most days on his way in. He has different shoes he wears in the office, but he'll wear Crocs to the office. And I do judge him for it a little bit.
There's so many other footwear options.
Yeah, but honestly, at the end of the day, I guess I don't like how they look, but if you're comfortable in them, wear them.
I suppose that is true. Well, Mr. Matt Boucher, it was nice to catch up with you on Sarah in Tech.
It was great to catch up with you.
Thanks for listening to Sarah in Tech. Feel free to email me at sarah@sarahintech.net or follow me on Instagram @sarahintech. Hope you enjoyed listening.